Hello and welcome to Pair Reflections, a proud member of the Duff Network where we reflect on Wildbow's most runaway work as it releases. I'm Ruben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
And we're coming at you live in the Discord with a special episode this week. Elliot, can you tell us why?
Yeah, I mean, Ruben's prepped a bonus bit at the end of this that he hasn't told me what it is. I've only seen the title and it concerns me. But I believe he said that I'll be competing against the audience for this one. So
yes, so this is a perfect example to say if somehow you have the intuition that you should join the Discord right now, it's a perfect time to do it, because if you don't do it by the end of this chapter, you won't be able to participate in this little live thing that we're doing. I mean, you can kind of participate from home, but it won't be the same. So anyway, join the Discord, because we'll probably do more stuff like this when we have single chapter episodes like this one, Elliot, because we're just talking about In Absentia 21.9 today.
It's an Avery chapter. It's all by itself, almost like the good old days.
Oh, shit. Did you hear that?
Yeah, that came through.
That was loud. Yeah, it's storming here. So is that thematic for this week's chapters? Maybe.
Not really.
Not really.
I'm sure you could stretch it.
Yeah, Anne's out here. Is it Anne or Deb?
Anne. Yeah.
Anne. Yeah, Anne's out here doing.
No, wait, no, Anne. No, I changed my mind. It's Deb.
It's Deb. Yeah, Deb's out here doing a thing. I get them mixed up. You know how it is.
I think we did a meme about that like 8 months ago, and it still hasn't gotten better.
What about mixing up Anne and Deb?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, I see nobody in chat is definitively saying whether it's Anne or Deb, which I think means everyone else is is in the same boat as us. Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about In Absentia 21.9 here, which starts with Verona on the phone to Mal, while Avery and Lucy catch up about their relationships.
Yeah, and I do love this chapter. Sort of opens, as all these Arc 21 ones do, kind of reminding us that Avery is a bit on edge and not like, happy place. And the first way this really manifests is Lucy kind of comes over and she's like, hey, they're talking about boy stuff. Can you please distract me? And Avery just immediately responds with, oh yeah, so how is Wallace?
Yeah, it's not a good distraction, is it?
No. There's a lot of talk about poking sore spots and how it's like better to rip these band-aids off. So like, I think they would both agree that this was a good conversation to have. It was just a hell of an opener from Avery.
Yeah, Avery went for a real fun one there. But yes, it leads into a conversation about the state of Lucy's relationship and how it's almost certainly kind of, falling off.
I love this as like a thing for Lucy, just because it'd be so like Lucy's the sort of person who I think would honestly have an easier time reconciling just like a relationship where Wallace did something wrong, or she even did something wrong, and it just meant it had to end, and it was just like a very strict, well-defined breakup. Like that's sort of the how she's always kind of viewed the world, and this kind of fizzling out just because neither of them are really trying too hard, and like Wallace maybe has more of the blame, but Lucy is kind of admitting like she probably could have done more too. Like it's this really murky and like no one did anything wrong really sort of vibe that must be like so hard for Lucy. And like she talks about that, like it's I think it's like realistic, and it's cool to see a teenager relationship sort of go through that in the story. But I also love that it was Lucy who it was chosen for, because I think she's the one who will have the most trouble reconciling that it just kind of fizzled out, not because anyone did anything wrong.
Yeah, I think it's exact type of unsatisfying and unanswered lingering questions, I guess, that Lucy is frustrated by. Which,
exactly. Yeah.
Is fair enough, I suppose. Like there's no catharsis to that, and that is something that is kind of frustrating and eats at you in an interesting way.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and Lucy's also someone who she fights for what is right, and she fights against what is wrong. And here she's just kind of confusing because she's not really fighting, but also it doesn't feel wrong, or like it says, like I think Lucy struggles with the idea that this isn't something where it's just okay to just let it fizzle out. Like that kind of goes against her whole like doing mentality that she's always had.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean the kind of key thought here that I think lands that this relationship is over is Lucy doesn't think Wallace is interested in putting in the effort to keep it going, and she kind of isn't either. And that's probably a pretty strong death knell, right?
Yeah. I wish. This is the thing with reading this story, right? Is we're reading a story about 14-year-olds, and as a 30-year-old, it's really hard to read a story like this because I think they're more emotionally mature than me. Like, I wish Lucy could have said that to me towards the end of some of my relationships, and so I didn't stubbornly pursue them when I shouldn't have. Like, because I like, it seems like a really great perspective for her to have, to just sort of realize and start processing this. But it's just like, it's just so funny reading this story about kids who are half my age and they're already better at some of this stuff than I definitely have been.
Yeah.
Like, not to get into packed spoilers, wasn't as much of an issue in that story.
Yeah. These kids are, they've gone through a lot, and that matures you, I suppose. But on to a more important question, Elliot. What is the couple name for B and Z here? I kind of like Breezed. How do you feel about Breezed? It obviously kind of works better written down than it does being said, but I still like it.
You don't really get the ed part of Z as much in Breezed, like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to do better, but you can't look past bread.
Yeah,
and
bread is strong.
Yeah, like it's just funny.
Yeah,
and
it does work better than breed.
Bread goes well. Yeah, breed is very close too, but that's just like, that's not a good word for it, bread, bread goes well with cheese. Like it works.
Okay, and what's cheese?
Brie.
Right. Sorry, I thought cheese was like another couple name. Like, no, cheese is like Chloe and somebody.
No, I did pitch Clobble for Chloe and Nibble.
Yeah, pretty terrible.
Yeah, thank you. And Kelsaw for Kelsey and Connor, which was a hard one to do.
Kelsaw just sounds like a DC villain. Purely.
Yeah, Kelsaw sounded like a race in Stargate to me.
Yep, for sure. And some kind of alien race that comes to Earth and has to learn not to, try and take over. So anyway, continuing the topic of important chats about relationships, Avery next calls Nora to check in on how she is doing and just kind of make sure their relationship isn't fizzling, I suppose.
Yeah, Lucy does some good prompting from the lesson she learnt with Wallace. Like, don't let the source point stop you from communicating, because that's just going to make it grow. Like, you got to get on that. But the part I wanted to talk about here that I thought was so funny is when Avery is almost like a little bit mad because Snowdrop just assumes that she gets to be a part of this phone call. And Avery's like, excuse me, I needed some privacy here. And part of me was just like, okay, first of all, you're like psychically linked, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're not getting your privacy anyway. But also, isn't this the whole point of having a familiar, is for like this exact kind of conversation to help emotionally get you through it? Like,
it seems like Snowdrop would be pretty useful emotional support in this conversation.
Yeah. I was just like, on many layers, Avery, what you're saying right now makes zero sense to me. And I think I've chosen to interpret it as just sort of like, there's a number of beats early in this chapter where you can tell Avery's just sort of floundering with this feeling of not keeping up, and like struggling to know what to do now, because it seems like their plan is falling away from under them. And I think it just causes her to like fall on some bad instincts, like pushing people away. And luckily, no one's letting her do that anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, also, why wouldn't you want your psychically linked opossum for this exact thing? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is the exact kind of thing that Snowdrop is good for, right? Like petting Snowdrop and drawing kind of emotional support during a nerve-wracking conversation.
Well, because like Avery snarks Verona right at the start of the chapter by noting that it seems weird you have to check in on your domain, because the whole point is that it should take care of itself. And then she tries to get her familiar to go away for what I would describe as the very reason you have a familiar, which is for emotional support. Like, yeah, crazy decision making.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so this call goes pretty well. Avery is pretty nervous, rightfully so, but her and Nora have a good chat, and even in a kind of obviously tumultuous point in Avery's life / their relationship, they're able to connect, and Avery gives some solid advice to Nora, and Nora gives some solid advice to Avery, which I guess we'll talk about soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this phone call's tricky because part of me, like, because I sort of came away from it with that sense of like, I guess that was a nice little chat, and it's good to see them kind of keeping in touch, but like, they haven't addressed the major problem. And my instinct in like a relationship like this would be like, you actually need to address the problem. But in this case, they can't, and so like like this was the thing for me that I was just like, you just left with this weird feeling of like, I guess that was nice, but like this relationship's still not in a good spot right now, and they can't deal with the actual problem, and that makes all these conversations there's only like a certain threshold of niceness that they can reach when it's like that.
Yeah, it is a bit strange, isn't it? Because you can feel the tension as they kind of have to dance around, this topic that is defining this point in their relationship.
Yeah.
But
But like,
yeah,
we saw Connor in Connor's interlude last arc. He and Kelsey had that system where it was like when things get really bad, they just sort of enter business mode so that they can communicate in a way that kind of is just clear and concise and kind of, lets them communicate what they need very specifically. And like I was listening to this conversation, like it hurts me that Nora and Avery can't do that sort of thing right now. Like Avery can't just enter business mode and communicate it clearly with Nora because that's what this whole
that's what the whole
issue is
problem
about.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That they
Um.
can't talk about this stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm so curious to see if we're ever going to get Avery have those lessons from the Garricks about how to balance a relationship with like an innocent person because like I don't think I could do like in Avery's shoes. I don't think I could maintain. I'd either have to awareify someone or just not pursue it.
Yeah, just not get into this serious of a relationship, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, can we talk about this bit where Wildbow plays this really mean prank on us?
I went to pull out this exact line too, and as I was copying it into the doc, I saw you already had it, and I was like, "Oh, thank God."
Yeah. When Avery, I guess, like, imagines Nora saying that she needs to be let in on what's going on, which I guess is Avery's kind of worst nightmare in this relationship because there's just no good way to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And then almost immediately it's revealed, no, that's Avery's imagination. Nora didn't say anything. And on one hand, I'm kind of like, okay, I can imagine Avery is nervous and that's just like her mind running away with her. But on the other hand, like, this is the kind of thing that once Avery has thought it, somebody like Marissa can just kind of intuit that she's thought it and that it's her worst nightmare, as we see Guillermo do later in this chapter, and be like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. You thought about this, and actually it's going to happen. In the same way that Marissa was like, oh, yeah, there's nobody for you here in Kennet. And that kind of fucked with Avery early on in this story, right? Like, now that it's been thought, even though it's fake, it's still like a vulnerability to me, and that makes me very nervous.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. But then part of me is also just like it's so like I don't know. This is exactly the sort of thing I feel like my brain would do in the same situation. Like what I liked about the fake out from like it's very mean from Wildbow's end, but also I was kind of like, yeah, no, I can totally see my brain doing that. Um, I hadn't I hadn't taken that thought to the next step like you would, which is assuming that that means somebody else will be able to take advantage of it. So I hate that idea.
It's rough, isn't it? Yeah, I thought the emotional punch of it landed very
Yeah.
well, but then when I was thinking on it more, I was like, oh no, the fact that this is like that we're in a fight against kind of a fae, depending on how you define Marcy,
She's still a
makes
fae in
this.
spirit.
Yeah,
She can carry on all she wants, but she's still waving that
she's
flag.
still a fae. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, so that's very worrying to me.
Yeah, I guess in lighter Avery and Nora conversation bits, just to pick up the mood a little, I really did enjoy the bit where Nora's mum comes in and is like, "Well, well, why don't you want to talk to her in front of me? Like, if you're not old enough to talk openly and honestly about like boys in front of your parents, then what's that about?" And I just always love seeing parents completely miss the ship like that, like Nora can pretty honestly say that Avery is doing a lot to distract Nora from boys. Like that's not coming up. That they're fine.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I mean, it's yeah, it's good stuff. It's very cute.
Um, and then to talk about like this conversation, because this is the part. So after this phone call, um, this is where the Kenneteers start to have a conversation. Avery does this thing, which I was just like so envious of her ability to just address her feelings like this, where she just like goes up to them and tells them that she feels insecure and like she isn't keeping up with them. Um, and then all three of them kind of take turns saying that they agree. Like Lucy then goes through hers, and Verona says she agrees. She doesn't go through hers, but I think she was defined by this insecurity for a chunk of the story, so we didn't need that reminder so much.
Mm.
But I what really got me through this conversation and all these emotions that were, just like a really intense, was Zed being on the side acting as a straight man again. Like, just I loved every time a Kenneteer would be like, "Yeah, I feel like I'm falling behind." Zed's just standing there like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like Lucy's like, "Yeah, I only make these small incremental jumps," and he's like, "You fought Anthem, like you argued down Muster. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I do like this second beat of one of the themes in this chapter of like, them, as Avery says it, like them all feeling like they're the weak one in the trio, which we've been talking about for a while, and I really just love, like, it is just so good that they're drawing attention to this and the kind of payoff for it, that the decision that they take and the way they approach this Aurum problem is just great.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll touch on the Aurum stuff in a bit. Yeah, like Warbo's mentioning in the chat that like also Verona might have had a bit less focus here, like in this example of it, because it was a focus for her arc, and so that has also meant she's kind of dealt with it in her own way, and like but it feels like a huge step to me to go from kind of handling this shit in your own internal head to like being able to talk about it like Avery does, and it's like crazy to me that Avery and Lucy were just able to say that sort of thing, and then it was so beneficial to have Zed here, just like losing his mind at the three of them being like, "Yeah, we're not that great."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a great moment. Really paid off. But yeah, so before they let out the tenant to contain it, they kind of prepare to release it and figure out what they're going to do with it. And they do a bit of kind of diagnostics on what Freeman's up to and his kind of battle against the TQ.
Yeah, and like Zed sort of refuses to let them bring the Turtle Queen over to just talk to her about this. And it was one of those things where I'm like, as much as I've moved into the camp of like, I think we can trust the Turtle Queen at this point, I do have to admit that I kind of get where Zed's coming from, and I didn't hold it against him that he was like, I'm not letting her touch my shit with a 10-foot pole.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Fair enough from Zed. Can we talk about Guilherme again? Like, Guilherme really is the ghost of the feast in these chapters, right? Like, he's just there, and you're like, man, what is going on with this guy? Like, what is he up to? And then he fucking drops some dope ass moments in this chapter. This first one, he's like freestyle defining the connection, exploring and then kind of revealing the connections between Freeman and TQ to get a picture of like what Freeman's up to. And then we'll get another one from him soon, but he's just so like, he's such a strong force, but also so weird and unreliable. It it's so yeah, it's so hard to put your finger on what's going on with him.
I love the thing that comes up later where he says, "Don't ask a winter fairy for nuance. Like we can do subtlety, but not nuance." And I think I kind of understand what that's saying, because
Yeah.
like nuance implies to me that ability to be a bit more flexible and understanding, whereas a winter fairy is just going to charge forward with what they were doing. And they'll, that might be a subtle thing that they were doing, but they're not going to like tweak it or adjust it and add nuance to it, I suppose, is how I interpreted his distinction there.
Mm.
And I think I think that's kind of what we're seeing here, is like that weird and unreliable thing that you're talking about, is like, because when we want him to do his thing, he gets to do it, and he's fucking great at it. But often it kind of feels like the Kenneteers are trying to tell him to just chill out a bit and like not do exactly what he wants. It's
Yeah.
like he's kind of always playing with both hands tied behind his back.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Like, he is restricted, and you feel his frustration in his interactions with the Kenneteers a lot, but also he's so incredibly useful to them. even operating under those restrictions, right? Like, it's
Well,
just
because
strange.
we were talking last week, I think it was, about the fact that like Guillermet has really been in a bit of a background role for a lot of the story since Arc 13. Like he really did withdraw, and we've seen him, and he's popped out, but like even when the Wild Hunt was in Kennet, he was surprisingly not present. Um,
Mm.
and like he's always felt like he's never been in the main action until suddenly Arc 21, and I've been trying to like figure out for the whole arc part of why that is. I think part of it is like I remember there was a moment in Arc 13, it's right at the end, where Marisica made Guillermet leave the main fight to go fight the witch hunters,
Mm.
because he needed to protect the others from that. But it kind of like is established as part of his pattern that he is on the sidelines and not in the main fight.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And now the Kenneteers are the ones out in the flanks, so maybe that's why he's suddenly having a much easier time kind of staying with them and being a part of stuff and actually being involved for the first time fucking ever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
I
is
like that
interesting
read.
because it's hard to think of where we are at the moment in the sidelines because it's the three Kenneteers, so it's all our POVs, and also they're kicking absolute fucking ass, but they are away from the main fight, sort of.
Mm.
So I think it does make sense that like part of why Guillermet is suddenly just around more is because he can't like he just can be more now because they're off to the sides.
It's more part of his patterns, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see
Um
that.
yeah, I was also thinking like, as we establish Guillermet's bona fides again more in this story, like, I I he was the one really kind of going against Marcy in the first half of this story, and, like, she ended up getting the win in Arc 13. She stopped him. I remember he had one line where he was like, "She's just too agile for me." Uh, Part of me was thinking he's less agile now that he's in winter, but,
Mm.
Marcy's also a big, sleepy, fat giant now, right? So,
Yeah,
like, I
they're
don't think.
both less agile. Yeah.
Yeah, so if we're looking at any kind of rematch, I'd love to see Guillermet have some sort of edge there because of something like this, but that feels like a very optimistic prediction.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Hard to say.
Yeah. Um, Also, sorry to I'm jumping back a bit in our notes, but you talked a bit about like all the stuff with Freeman's backstory and his fear of the Turtle Queen.
Mm.
I sort of like I really enjoyed this from like a technical perspective in that like we like it was fun use of dramatic irony because we know Freeman's backstory because we had his interlude, but it really wasn't until this came up that I was reminded that the Kenneteers don't know his backstory, and so
Mm.
it was really fun like because there was like the different sort of engagement we had with it versus the Kenneteers where like he's saying all this stuff and you can just imagine the Kenneteers are a bit like okay whatever you reckon like I guess that sounds fine. Um,
Mm.
Whereas we're all sitting there losing our fucking minds because he's just hitting nail after nail on the head.
Yeah. he's he is just nailing it, isn't he?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Guillermet asks them here if they want to kill Freeman, and Lucy decides no, we don't. He's not at that point yet, so they give him a chance to back down. It does not go to plan, to be sure.
Yeah. Before we do get to Helen,
Mm.
I just wanted to quickly bring up that bit where, as they're having that vote about whether they want to kill Freeman, Lucy sort of complains that it feels like the universe is constantly asking her to relitigate the Alexander dying thing.
Mm.
And Guillermet brings up that part of it is because she hasn't fully reconciled it, and it's like you need to make your peace with the fact that some people just deserve to die.
Mm.
Um, and I was like, I really hated that idea because I feel like that's the first step to just creating rules for how people should die. And I was so
Yeah.
glad that Avery spoke up with that very Ward protagonist perspective that I tend to have, which is just the idea of like, yeah, I think that's the point. Is it should always feel shitty to kill someone, and like that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Obviously, we just made the choice to, like shoot the alabaster in the head. But
Yeah.
um, like what worries me is when you reach the point where shooting someone in the head doesn't feel bad.
Yeah. I mean, even if she's able to fully reconcile Alexander's death, like it should weigh on her somewhat because if it doesn't,
Yeah,
that's a problem, right?
yeah, exactly. And yeah, Ward talked about that to death, and I'm not going to try and compete with Matt and Scott on this front, but like I loved seeing Guillermet sort of put that idea out there that you should just accept that some people deserve to die, and Avery was the one who kind of spoke up and was like, I don't really think that's fully true.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Guillermet says that exactly. My read on he definitely says that's an option, but he says like you haven't reconciled it in your heart, and when you do, it will be the way things are, right? But
Yeah.
that I think that's Guillermet's way of, in the way he says one thing and it expects you to kind of imply the corresponding elements. There is the option to not reconcile it, and then it won't be the way things are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. That may not be. Yeah, that may not be what he was thinking. Maybe, but it's certainly an option. Who knows with him? I did.
Yeah.
Sorry, you did just bring up the thing I wanted to call out. There's the bit where he says, I said you had two eminent options, and Mercy wasn't one. And then when Lucy's like, you couldn't have clarified, he's like, well, I told you there were two, so obviously a third one is not especially eminent. And I was just like, fucking, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning.
No, this is classic Guillermet. I love it.
It's like a little sassy boy. Like,
yeah. But yeah, can we talk about the Helen
yes.
thing? She's about to like obliterate Freeman here. And I mean, okay, we don't fully know exactly how this ends. The ending to this is either Freeman potentially gets away or Helen forces Freeman to swear kind of oaths of fealty. But either way, they've lost a willing participant and have transformed them into an unwilling participant at best, which is not great, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cray. It's cray how she's just immediately like, nah, shut up or I'm going to horrify you.
It's so the hair trigger on this woman. It's just like, I mean, yeah. I'm just gonna say it. I think she might be a bit of a cunt. Like, I don't think Helen is a very good person. Like,
yeah, it deserved to be forsworn, is what you're saying. Some people just deserve to be forsworn. A certain kind of malfeasance, I think, deserves a certain kind of ending.
Yeah, she may not have deserved to be forsworn last time, but she's certainly not making a good case for herself on appeal.
Yeah.
This is interesting because it's like she talks about like she's at least self-aware enough to know that these sorts of threats mean that her and Freeman's friendship isn't really going to be a thing. She calls them friends in the past tense. Like, she's not that delusional. But then she says, yeah, she's going to extract these oaths from him.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Like, because we might still have lost Freeman if he's going to have to swear oaths to not get horrified.
Yeah. Freeman. Oh yeah, and again, Guillermet A+ figures out Freeman's whole deal just by kind of listening to him breathe through a phone. Classic stuff.
Yeah. It's crazy, like, cold reading going on where he's just like, it's like, the way he said friends, there's a micro it's like fucking Lie to Me, the show. I don't know if you ever watched
it. It's like Tim Roth, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Where he's just sort of like, hesitated for a microsecond. That means, one of the two friends has to do with the horror stuff in his background. It's like, Jesus, like, Guillermet is terrifying when he's on the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, can we talk about Lie to Me for a second? Because that was based off of a real dude, right?
I've read the real book that it said it would teach you how to be able to do it, but what it didn't tell me is that would be a lot of work. So,
well, yeah, for sure. But like, how legit? Obviously you can't pull off some Sherlockian Tim Roth style feats, but like, where's how bullshit is it? You know what I mean? I remember there was this bit where Hamish and Andy, who are two radio presenters here in Australia, had the guy on their show, and they did a thing where they got him to like check if like Andy was cheating on his girlfriend or something, which was obviously kind of it was never going to be anything, right? Yeah. But I was kind of, it was interesting to hear, but I would have loved to hear it with an actual thing, like, get him to pick a number between 1 and 10 and try and figure out which one it is or something. You know what I mean? Like, is that possible?
So I read the book like 10 years ago, so I'm pre-apologizing if I'm slightly misremembering, but there were two aspects to it. There's like, first off, you just need to be naturally quick enough to see micro expressions.
Yeah.
Like a big thing of it is reading micro expressions to detect lies and stuff.
Yeah.
And some people just don't have that sort of reaction time or whatever. And I think I'm one of those. I've always had terrible reaction speeds, but
Mm.
I mean, definitely this book purported that if you trained yourself to be able to see those micro expressions and you had the ability to see them, you could get like pretty good at telling when people are lying.
Mm.
Um, the exceptions were like there are certain kinds of people, like it flagged psychopaths and
Yeah, yeah,
also
yeah.
like some kinds of autistic people, like if they don't micro expression in a sort of neurotypical way,
Yeah, it can be
then obviously
misleading
like it
for
won't
sure.
work. Um,
Yeah, I remember there was a guy on that show who I think his shtick was like constant honesty 24/7, and that was like his character trait.
yeah,
And I remember that not being a very compelling character trait.
yeah. I had
Uh,
forgotten that character existed until you just mentioned it because I remember Tim Roth and I
yeah,
remember the main character girl who was like his protege, and then I think
yeah,
that guy was the third guy.
yeah, like radical candor, radical honesty kind of
Yeah,
vibes.
I remember enjoying
What
that
a show!
show for
I
that.
remember enjoying it too, but now that I think back on it, it just feels so 2000s. Like I can't
Yes,
believe it
yeah.
actually is a show that I would have ever enjoyed.
It was during the peak of that like 20 episode season detective
Yeah.
saga that TV went through from in like the late 2000 early 2010s. Like just
Well, yeah, I think there was this like, well, yes, I think House was like the
yeah,
definitive show that was like, let's try and do a modern police procedural, or obviously House wasn't a police procedural, it was a medical procedural, but a modern procedural TV version of Sherlock Holmes kind of narrative or character, right?
yeah.
And then that led to things like House or Psych, which I think are some of the best versions of that. But then just like a slew of things like Lie to Me and like The Mentalist and all these kind of
Mm.
these very similar types of shows. The Pretender. I don't know The Pretender.
No, I've been meaning oh, Monk would have been another one.
Monk. Yeah.
I never watched Monk. I always wanted to watch Psych. Anyway. But
The
you're right, it feels too
Pretender.
late. Like some of those shows I'm like I just feel like I wouldn't enjoy it so much in 2022, you know? Like
Okay, so The Pretender. The series follows Jared, a young man who is a pretender, a genius imposter able to quickly master the complex skill sets necessary to impersonate a member of any profession.
oh, didn't this come up? Has this come up in Pale Reflections before? Because Wildbow referenced it at some point. Am I
Really?
going crazy?
This has
Yeah,
gone
okay,
out
good.
of my
Wildbow's saying
head
yes.
so quickly.
I think we talked about. I think we've had this exact conversation like a year ago when it got a throwaway reference in one chapter, and we brought it up in the podcast. That's funny.
I'm trying to I want to see if there's like descriptions of episodes where it's like, oh, this season. Okay, yeah. Here we go. In the pilot, Jared pretends to be a doctor to avenge a boy crippled by faulty surgery. He joins the Coast Guard. He pretends to be a test pilot. He becomes the head of security at a Vegas casino and discovers Curious George and Barrel of Monkeys. I don't know what the fuck that's all about. But anyway, yeah, it sounds interesting. It sounds bizarre.
Yeah, but again, it's just one of the, like I think I've missed the boat on it, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't know if
yeah,
you'd ever go back and watch any of these shows. Although I have gone back and watched Psych a few times. It's still pretty fun.
yeah. I'm just it's that thing. I'm not even keeping up with the good stuff that's coming out now. Like, I don't have
Yeah,
as
for
much
sure.
bandwidth to do old classics.
Yeah. Where were we?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm just reading about some hot takes around Dollhouse in the chat that are making me
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah. Should we talk about them? I know you
No,
love
we've
Dollhouse
already
Hot
talked
Take.
about not pale stuff long enough.
Yeah.
I think we were up to here.
Yeah, I mean Severance is like the better version of Dollhouse, right? I think we can all agree. Can't wait for another season of that show.
What Dollhouse?
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope. Anyway, so yeah, they released the Tenant to and kind of without any curses on him to go back to Freeman, and maybe Freeman can use him against Helen and escape, or maybe Freeman will just swear oaths of fealty and the Tenant will come back right back to them again. We'll see. Anyway, they head to the new Garrick HQ, and Avery's fam is there, including Sheridan, who has decided that she wants to go from being a loser to being a loser, which is pretty funny. And there's a great beat of Verona guessing that.
Yeah, I did love Verona getting it in one. And how Avery, I think, really makes the comedy of all this Sheridan stuff land because she's stressed out by it.
Yeah.
Like even their mum is just sort of like exasperatedly like, oh, Sheridan, don't do that. Whereas like Avery looks like she's about to lose her mind.
Yeah. Hey,
The
Elliot.
thing,
I just thought of a great joke. Sorry, I'm going to derail the podcast here
yeah,
for a
no,
second.
you're going to steal
So
my joke, aren't you?
I don't know. I'm going to rewind to when they release the Tenant. Is your joke about the
Okay.
Tenant?
No, it's not. So this one's.
Okay, yeah.
I'll follow it up with my one, and
So
we'll take turns.
edit this whatever to make it sound like I'm just coming up with it at the time. Okay,
I'll do that.
So yeah, they decide to release the Tenant without any curses or anything, which means they're going to send it to Freeman, and Freeman might just send it back to them, bringing the Tenant back. Like, what is this? The Doctor Who Christmas specials? Anyway, so they head to the Garricks, and Avery's family's there.
Oh, I'm so glad we did that. That was worth it.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
So the other thing we're talking about was that Sheridan wants to become a loser with a capital L.
Yes.
And I was just going to point out she already has a podcast. I don't see.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Good one. That's a good joke. So now, chat, in the discussion question, you can
take a vote.
Which joke you think was more worthwhile to derail this already kind of pretty derailed episode, I would say. This is the fun stuff about single chapter episodes. I think we have the freedom to go on many more dumb tangents.
Yeah, exactly. This is everything I wanted out of Sheridan looking into the practice.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, especially because the big thing I wanted was to see Avery losing her mind about it, and that's what we're getting. Like Avery starts talking about like pulling her hair out and stuff, and it's just so like Sheridan's just so good at getting under her skin, and I loved it.
Well, that's the great thing about it is not only does it feel like a great fit for Sheridan, it's also a great fit for annoying Avery, right? Like it is the practice that you would pick just to annoy Avery the most, but it also is a good fit for Sheridan, so it's so perfect.
Yeah, so my understanding is a loser is basically somebody who banishes shit to the paths, which I think Clawford in my live read pointed out that that's very similar to what Anne does with the Abyss and the Ruins, just with the paths, which seems like a better way of disposing of your waste, I think, but I could be wrong about that. But
and I think ties in to the primevals, as I'm easily impressed, as kind of a few people are touching on. I think I saw this in the discussion in Discord as well. Like, this is potentially the way the primevals was sent, kind of banished to the paths as well. And that is such a great connection to Sheridan's very first introduction to the practice.
That's fun. Yeah. It also just, I don't know, because I was trying to think what the intersection of the paths and Sheridan was, and I do like the idea of her kind of vibing with being the person who decides what shit is useless and throwing it out there.
Yeah, right? Like, literally banishing folks to tidy up the world. It's the exact kind of clean up your room shit that she doesn't do in real life, I guess. Anyway, it's good stuff.
I also wanted to talk about this moment because Kelsey is here, but she kind of keeps falling into the background because Sheridan keeps taking the limelight. But there's this one great bit where she brings up the fact that she heard that they did a murder. And basically she's sort of like, was it like a heat of the moment? Like, were you panicking and it was self-defense? And Avery basically is like, no, that would be terrible. This was extremely premeditated. And seems to think that that's going to reassure her mum. But I just, I don't know, it felt like another one of those really important moments of like, I guess we had Connor's interlude last arc, and that interlude sort of included the moment where Connor really sort of took that step back and was like, oh, I can't keep thinking of Avery as my daughter now. She's like her own person. And I feel like we're sort of getting to that stage with Kelsey too, because I don't think Kelsey has had that moment yet, but I think your 14-year-old daughter being like, don't worry, I only do premeditated murders is probably going to help.
Yep. So good. So helpful. No, it is actually quite funny, isn't it? It's such a weird response.
But like, it does kind of make sense. It's like, no,
of course it makes sense from their perspective, but also it's the exact kind of thing that makes sense when you're in the moment. But when you take even a second to think about how it sounds outside of the context, you're like, no, hold on. Hold on a second.
Well, it does come back to when they talked to that practitioner from Paris. I think that was in last week. And they're like, so wait, you just decided this unilaterally to kill the Alabaster? And like you could kind of get where Kelsey's cover up with the same thing. It's like I understand that you sort of decided you needed to kill the alabaster, but like, why are you making these choices?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So yeah, they together they decide how they're going to handle the Aurum. Avery challenges them all to be the best versions of themselves that she knows they can be, and the kid gloves come off.
Yeah, and this is so hype. This is very fun.
Yeah. I find it equal parts like really impressive and heartwarming, and also horrifying. Like,
yeah,
because there is this like, it almost feels like this Super Saiyan moment, right? Of like, hey, these limits that you felt, they're gone now, and immediately we see. Well, I mean, Verona's challenge is just to fuck with Charles, and I think we know she can deliver on that.
Yeah.
But the challenge for Avery to raise an army is just immediately suddenly like, oh shit, that's actually really terrifying. You know what I mean? Because I can see exactly how that's something she's going to be really good at. She's going to raise a fucking horrifying army, and I can just immediately see it, you know?
Yeah. The only thing that has stopped Avery from raising an army already is that she doesn't think to do that. So
Yes.
having Lucy's brain powering Avery is a bit like, oh, these three are going to be able to get whole new heights of crazy shit done.
Yeah. It really feels like they've just kind of tricked their brains into escalating into a whole other level, and it's incredible.
Yeah. Poor Zed. Like he thought he was behind already, but yeah, I really, really love this as like a very concrete example of how the Kenneteers kind of reclaiming their teamwork abilities is like leading them to be better. Because these insecurities about falling behind and all that were a lot of what fucked them over in Arc 13, and Marissa played with them, and that was like a huge part of Verona's character at that point in the story. And so here, not only are they like overcoming that, like Avery's pointing out, hey, we all feel this, and it's kind of good if we channel it in the right way and reframe it. I think this is actually a good thing, and it helps us. And then to fully turn it into a strength by saying, okay, well, we're better at knowing what the others are good at and not focusing on their flaws. So let's just give ideas to each other. And it's just like I guess in my head, I'd always been assuming that, when they faded back into each other's banners properly, it would be like, and now they do teamwork good. And, but like, I didn't have an image for what that like sort of actually looked like. And I love this as an example of the sort of thing that justifies why this is different to Arc 13, because it's not just that intrinsic, well-oiled machine sort of teamwork good, but it's like they've opened up a new pathway to communication and like got a new strategy that just means they're going to be fucking outrageous, and it's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. What do you think Verona's going to come up with for her way to ruin Charles's day? Like the last time she wasn't on her new level, and Percival was what came out.
Yeah, I mean, fuck knows with Verona, right? Like you couldn't have picked a harder question to ask anyone. I don't think. Like we'll have to see. I mean, Verona, as Lucy points out, if Verona's good at one thing, it's kind of causing a chaotic mess. So I can't wait to see what she comes up with. But this is what's powerful about Verona. She's got about 100 things in her toolbox.
Yeah. What even is it going to be?
I'm trying to think of what like skills and abilities and stuff she's had that haven't been used much recently. Like we touched on her like summoning and stuff. I don't know. Like I feel like this is gonna be one of those things where when we see it, it's gonna be like, oh, of course. Perfect.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. I wonder if it'll fold into her needful things vibe at all. Something we haven't really seen her use because it hasn't been built up long enough. But
well,
yeah.
I would have thought that would have more to do with the Aurum stuff. Like I would have thought doing some sort of mass scale peddling would be the sort of thing to fuck with the Aurum, not with Charles. Like if it's specifically a mess for Charles to clean up, it has to be something in his domain, right? So something to do with violent others, inter-practitioner violence, some like conflict. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? I am excited though for whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. Lucy is also the person who we haven't talked about this in the like. Like Lucy doesn't come up in this chapter, and it's very fun to think about what the others are going to try to challenge Lucy to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it comes up earlier that she's kind of playing this role of the bouncer or enforcer, keeping people in line and not doing shitty stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she kind of pushes back against that idea a bit, but maybe she'll be challenged to just kind of accept it and I don't know, like grow into her version of it, I guess.
I am really. I hope you're right because I want to see this idea explored because we skipped over it, but I thought it was fascinating the idea that like I do think the Kenneteers have like largely slept on just the sheer like the massive amounts of soft power they're accumulating, and like Zed brings it up with this very sort of brutish thing, but it's like I mean it is true that as they keep pulling off massive stunts like this, like their voices matter more and more.
Mm.
And you know that's going to be most prominent, most relevant in Lucy's practice more than the other two because if she's moving more into this law stuff and this dueling stuff, your reputation matters more in those practices than it does for Verona and Avery's, at least
Yeah,
directly.
yeah.
So yeah, it would be fun to sort of see them challenge her to use this soft power she's accumulating and just her like fucking intimidation skills. So I think Lucy enjoys intimidating people, but fuck, she's good at it when she wants to.
Yeah, I mean, she's becoming the definition of like speak softly, carry a big stick, right?
Yeah. I'm still not over that bit where she's like, "Oh, I just feel like I make only these small steps," and then instead being like, "You fought Anthem. Like,
Yeah.
What are you talking about?"
Yeah, good stuff.
There's also talk of like getting Guillemay to get some of the fairy with the Y markets involved in this. And he's not super sold on this plan yet, it seems, or at least he's putting up a facade of poking them for to do more before they kind of set their hearts on it. Which sorry, I really enjoyed his bit where it's like, sorry, but once a plan has sort of been said, your heart will be set on it. And I was like, that feels like a story related thing. Like once we've heard the plan and the story, I kind of assume it's going to be somewhat relevant going forward. Like
Yeah.
Wildbow's not going to dedicate half a chapter to a plan that they're not going to do. But this plan is like extremely chaotic too. Like it involves just kind of shoving tons of shit, like creating a mess and using like an army of 1,000 goblins. And it's like it just feels very un-Guillemay. So I kind of enjoy that after him having their back against the Alabaster, which was a very like well executed, like very fairyish plan. Now they're doing something a little bit more chaotic and to deal with the stuff of like keeping up with the present. And Guillemay's suddenly a bit like, I don't like this where this is going. Like his sort of old man energy is coming out for this new plan.
Yeah, it's interesting. He seems to get on board by the end of it, doesn't he? Of this vibe of like, yeah, I guess this will be okay. Kind of,
He says
now
he
that
can
you've
do
set
it.
your heart on it, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's maybe not going to be a super willing participant, but he knows the dynamic and he'll go along with it to an extent. Probably just thinking it won't work as good as it probably will. The other thing he brings up is that this will get them a lot of attention. And like speaking of all the soft power the Kenneteers are getting, I wanted to touch on that again too because like they've already been on that phone call with like Paris. They got a lot of attention for the Alabaster. Like if they succeed in taking out the Aurum or the Sable, or if they don't need to take them out, but they're like bending them to their will, like I just can't imagine that when Wildbow started this story, he expected to reach the point where these three would have to be like names that a lot of people around the world are going to know. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is going beyond just the talk of the soft power. It's just like there's no way that people in the know across the world aren't going to be able to talk about the three 14-year-old practitioners who managed to bend and break three of the judges to get rid of the fourth one.
Yeah. How do they even still think that they're not powerful? They're getting these phone calls from fucking Paris. They're doing such crazy shit.
Yeah, like I don't know, obviously I have no idea where this story is going and exactly what the end game looks like. That's a given, but like I would love to I would enjoy as much of this as we can of like seeing the Kenneteers reconcile with just their absolutely massive world tier status.
Yeah, for sure. Ah, good times. Good times. Good chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like this sort of chapter for showing us how much Avery was stressed, but also, like not just stressed, but like stressed because of the isolation and the lack of connections, but then managing to use them to strengthen the ones she has access to. Like, it's a great Avery chapter for her just like using her communication skills to better herself and everyone around her.
Mm, yeah, yeah, it's classic Avery stuff.
Yeah. Well, should we get to the first sort of new thing we're doing this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Um,
Sorry, scrolling down to the bottom of the notes. All right, so we've got a special activity this week
oh,
for.
sorry. No, I was talking about the thing up here.
Oh, sorry. Two new things this week. Yeah. Well, something that we thought we would do in addition to our Pale Predictor predictions left by the community in our Pale Predictor form, is we thought we'd start on weeks where we don't have a ton of predictions to pull out. We thought we'd pull out some comments from the Reddit discussion threads that we really liked, and
Yeah. Which is like,
use
this is
those
an
as jumping
idea that
off points.
I'm just mad at us for not having it 2.5 years ago, like.
Yeah, well, we used to pull out, back when we did Deep Impact, we used to pull out comments from 5 years ago and bring them back into the
Yeah.
feature, which I thought was a really fun thing to do. So now we're doing that, but they're comments from 5 days ago instead.
Yeah, it's just like, I think both of us kind of hold off reading the Reddit threads too much before we write our notes because we don't want to accidentally steal ideas from people.
Mm,
And then I guess we just forgot that meant after we did the notes, we could go back and pull out stuff we missed.
yeah.
So we're going to start doing it now, at least.
Hell yeah.
Um, and I've pulled out one. I'll just start from Sintile, who commented on Reddit that they think the Alabaster Assembly might actually be okay with voiding any oaths Freeman is forced to make to Helen, like under duress.
Mm. Yeah,
Which
I mean, like,
yeah,
yeah. Oaths under duress are already kind of not legally enforceable, at least in Australia, right? Like,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you're forced into an oath under duress, it's not, enforceable in court. So I
Which
can see that being a thing.
yeah, like this feels like the sort of thing where 500 years ago in the practice, a judge might not care, but like the Alabaster Assembly's whole thing is like representing the current zeitgeist of like
Yes. Of how it
Ontario as it
should
stands.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the average person would agree that like if a person is holding a gun to your head, and you have a specific phobia around gunshots, that any oaths you make should not be binding.
Yeah, I mean, as Mirthstrike is saying, like, invalidating the oath maybe won't be the play, but it will be a justification for unforswearing, I guess, which already is kind of huge,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. And it just would be so funny to see this Alabaster start undoing forswearings, but like good.
But yeah, undoing
as opposed to
forswearings,
certain other judges.
yeah, in a way that is like more reasonable, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, because Charles doesn't have a 0 hit, right? Like we all loved what he did for
No.
Raquel. Like he
Yeah,
did.
and Yiyun
Yeah.
as well, right? Like, clearly some of these oaths shouldn't have been enforced, and having a system that can like invalidate shitty oaths is good.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like that. That's from Sintile. Great stuff. So well done, Sintile. I pulled out a comment from I'm easily impressed, a very common name in our predictions. But yeah, I really like this one. So I'm easily impressed kind of pointed out that the Kenneteers seeing the best in each other and kind of challenging each other to be the best versions of themselves is a great juxtaposition to the Negateers kind of pointing out the flaws in each other and excising them through surgery. It's just such a great different vibe to compare the two groups. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. Because I still kind of view it as a trio in my head. Like you've got the Blue Heron, Charles's Negateers, and then the Kenneteers are like Kennett found one. So I almost want to extend this to the idea that like the third group, like the Kenneteers see the best in each other. The Negateers are constantly like dragging each other down to pull each other up, and then the Blue Heron was just kind of like everyone was kind of working together, but it only served the elites really.
Yeah,
and that essentially does summarize the major social interactions within each of those three vibes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I thought this was a great comparison that I Missing Press pulled out. And yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Comparing these groups is such a great way to get deeper understandings about why, what the differences are between them and why we like some of them and don't like others, I guess. We also had a discussion question last week.
Yes. Are we doing the discussion question before the?
Yeah, I think so. So.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's get through it. So yeah, we asked everyone, what should the leadership of the Bellinger compound look like?
Yeah. We got a few answers to this one that were all quite different, I think. Let's start with Landis 963. So Landis 963 was conflicted, as I think everybody was, but started talking about the trade-off between just picking between Nicolette and Jen, right? Nicolette being a good example of the person who could be a good leader but doesn't kind of want it, and also, being the leader of this group comes with downsides that Landis isn't sure they would want to inflict on Nicolette. Jen also has the kind of more traditional choice, I guess, has a claim to it, as does Y, but Jen is probably the more establishment choice at this point. Picking between the two of them, Landis went for Nico just because she would work to keep connections outside of the Belanger family kind of healthy and numerous and kind, and that's probably a pretty good choice.
Yeah, they're essentially where Jen lost them mostly was that Landis 963 felt like she doubled down on the hunkering and isolation that the Bellingers have done. Because if there's one thing Jen has demonstrably done in the past, it's identify a problem and then immediately done it to her daughter. So, yeah. Ripper 1337 sort of like came at the same sort of debate from the other side. So they basically ended up sort of picking Jen, because like they thought like when Jen was taking action in the siege, like she did actually kind of help get them all in line and do some good. And like Ripper 1337 did say like an outsider would kind of be best, except you have to have lived in the Bellinger compound to probably really understand like what's wrong with it. And also like an outsider might not be accepted. So they sort of went for Jen because they're like, they said, even though I dislike Jen, she realizes what the flaws are with their home, and hopefully like she might be able to do something about that. Like, yeah, all the sorts of things like wanting to fuck your cousin because there's only other family members around. These are the sorts of things she understands better than anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. She does have the insight of being a part of this compound for long enough that she could be a pretty good leader within the context of it.
Yeah, and I think like the story did kind of bring this up last week, which is why it became our discussion question. Because like Nicolette was talking to the Bitter Street Witch and saying like Jen does seem to be better and more productive right now, but it's a question of will that last? And I think your opinion on that answer is probably what separates you, like Landis 963 versus Ripper 1337. I think Ripper maybe thinks Jen's got a better looking path forward, whereas Landis is assuming she'll backslide. So it really depends whether you're, like Charles and you see the good in people, or you're like the Kenneteers and you don't see the good in people.
Yeah. So we also got an answer from Propaganda Pagoda, which they did a great job of summarizing for us as well, so we wouldn't need to make the summary ourselves.
Do you just want to read, like verbatim reading their summary is a great summary of what their answer was.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Propaganda Pagoda proposed a ridiculously complex system of doling out controlling and voting shares of the family, prioritizing Jen and Nicolette to start, but incentivizing raising up additional Bellangers to business class via training or apprenticing, and with a decay factor, making the old men quickly irrelevant. And the system is rigged to be dissolved when 20 Bellangers reach a level of competence so that Jen's tragedy doesn't repeat. Which is a pretty good summary. It had specific and complex rules about like, here's the percentage of ownership that everyone gets to start, and here's how the percentages are transferred. It was quite complex. So thanks for the summary, Propaganda Pagoda.
Yeah, Miss would have been proud of this one because there was a lot of bureaucracy involved.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone for leaving your answers to our discussion question. Of course, we have a new discussion question for this week. Elliot, would you like to tell everyone what it is?
Yes, and thanks to the chat and very specifically Wildbow for helping consult on this. We are asking people this week to pick an insult and then make a practice based on it.
Yes. If Sheridan's a loser, what are you, Elliot? You don't have to answer. Just that's what the question is.
What if somebody might be a brat? Because that's basically an insult at this point. Like your practice could be to be a brat.
What would being a brat look like in the practice?
Just making yourself like an immovable object, just and just sapping the goodness out of like any region that you're in for a long enough amount of time.
I see it as like a gaslighting practice where the more you can your practice is basically the ability to rewrite things that have happened, but the further it is away, the more you can sell it as how close it is to what actually happened, the less power it takes, right?
Well, and you gain power from being a victim. Like I'm easily impressed brought up Angie, and I think that's the sort of comparison. You get power from framing yourself as the victim and making out like you're the one doing all the work.
Yeah, good stuff.
Anyway, so pick any insult and make a practice out of it.
Yeah, so you can leave your answers to that into the discussion thread. But before we talk more about that, we've got a special activity this week. Since this week, we thought it was going to be a short episode. It's actually shaping up to be not that much of a short episode, but anyway.
I sat down and I was like, I don't have much to say about this chapter. But
and then suddenly we talked about Lie to Me for 20 minutes. Anyway, Elliot, obviously something that the Kenneteers are struggling with right now is, even if they do get rid of the Aurum, who's going to replace them? You know what I mean? So I thought it might be fun for us to figure out who would be a good replacement for the Aurum. And the way that I've decided to do that is to...
Sorry, just to be clear, in case anyone doesn't know, I have no idea what's coming. I'm completely in the dark.
The way that I thought it would be good to do that is to just do a little bit of a kind of test Aurum contest, Elliot, where you are up against... let's call it an amalgamation of kind of the area, which is what I'll call
the Aurum Assembly.
Exactly, the Aurum Assembly. So basically, Elliot, we're going to try and assess, would you be a good candidate for the Aurum, or would the Aurum Assembly of chat be better? Here's how this is going to work. Obviously, from a few chapters ago, we got this specific line, which, summed up what we already kind of knew about the Aurum. The Aurum's portfolio is urban, tech, innovation, roads, factories, the human churn, fortune in the luck sense, and fortune in the cash sense. So what I'm going to do is pit you, Elliot, head-to-head against chat in those categories. Whoever wins at the end, it will be our kind of Aurum candidate, yeah? So specific rules. Let's get into the specific rules here, shall we? You, Elliot, and chat, both going to start with 10 gold pieces, okay? And I'll keep track of them here. Elliot has 10, and let's call Aurum Assembly has 10. 10 stonks. 10, yeah, exactly. And whoever has the most gold pieces at the end is going to win. I've got a list of 10 questions here. And Elliot, on each question I'm going to tell, and chat, on each question I'm going to tell you both the category, and you can choose to gamble between 1 and 3 gold pieces on the question. Right? So you get to choose.
Sorry, just as an aside, I'm so glad I'm not playing this against you. This is exactly the sort of game you always kick my ass in. So,
well, you're playing against the Aurum Assembly.
I can blame it on the fact that there's many of them.
So yeah, I'll reveal the category. You and chat will choose how many gold pieces to gamble. I'll say what the question is, and then you and chat will both give your answers. How it's going to work is I'm just going to take like the most common answer that I see in chat. For example, for the gold pieces, whichever one I see the most, 1, 2, or 3, I'll just take that as their answer. And the most common answer we'll take from chat.
Yeah.
Right?
All packed up rules, basically. That's how we interacted with chat during all packed up from memory.
Yeah. Just basically kind of read through chat and pick out the answers that look like it's what the chat is saying collectively. Okay. Does that make sense? Any rule questions from, the Aurum Assembly here live in the Discord? And remember, folks, you can participate in things like this as we do more of them leading up to All Packed Up to All Powered Up Beyond the Pale by going to doofmedia.com/Discord and joining the Discord. Any rules questions, Elliot or Aurum Assembly, before we kick off?
No, I think I get it.
All right, so
I assume if I get a question wrong, I lose what I bet, and I get double if I get it right.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
So to start off, question one, we'll start with a fairly simple one. The category for this one is fortune. Okay. Fortune.
Which kind?
I'm not going to tell you, unfortunately.
Oh, fuck.
Unfortunately. Yeah, 1, 2, or 3, basically.
I'm going for 2 because I don't want to be a coward and go for 1.
Yep, and it looks like Chad is also going for 2, so that's great. So we're both playing for 2 here. Your question is, who?
Sorry, should I hide the chat? I probably should, shouldn't
I? Yeah, probably don't look at chat, I guess is good. Okay. And chat, obviously you can hear Elliot, so you can let that inform you however you want, I suppose. So question 1, you've both chosen to bet 2 gold pieces. Question is, who is the richest person in the world? Just a simple one to start off with, a straightforward question. Who is the richest person in the world?
2 weeks ago, I would have been very confident in my answer for this, but I'm worried I'm going to get hit with not keeping up like the Aurum coil might be, because Elon just blew a lot of money on a bad investment.
Yeah, we're going by net worth here, and this is as recently as I could find. So it was like the stat that I saw was like a day or 2 old.
Oh, see, a day or 2. I mean, he even just like without where Twitter's going, he lost a lot because he overpaid for that massively. I feel like Jeff Bezos. I'll just say Elon. I'm going to play it safe.
You say Elon. Chat also says Elon. That is still the correct answer. The scourge of Twitter, Elon Musk himself. Yeah. So the second most richest person
is Jeff.
Sources. Nah, Jeff is like 3 or 4. It's the Adani guy, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
But Elon, I think, was at like about 200 billion, and the next closest was about 120, something like that. Yeah, so Elon's at 200 billion right now. We got Bernard Arnault. I can't remember who he is, but he's at 140. Then the Adani guy is at 125. So yeah, there's a solid amount. A solid amount of difference there. Sorry, let me clarify with the gambling of coins here. You're gambling against me, not like you don't get the amount the other person gambled. You just either double or lose the amount you gamble. So
we're both on 12.
You're both on 12 now. So really, there's been no change in the standings.
Well, but we're richer. The house is.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, but I hate to say it, but I have infinite gold pieces. All right, so
okay, Elon.
The next category. The next domain in your portfolio here is urban, Elliot. So on the urban category, how many of your gold pieces would you like to gamble?
Just a humble country boy, Ruben. I mean, I can't just go 2 for everything. That's equally as cowardly as going for 1. Okay, I'm going to roll a dice.
Oh, great. Really leaving it to fate. To Lady Luck.
Fuck. Okay, I'm going for 3.
That's so funny. Yeah, so it seems like you and the Aurum Assembly are both going for 3 on this one.
Oh, fuck.
On the urban question, your question is, what city in the world has the largest population? What do you got?
So my first thought is New York, but that's like Western bias. It's going to be, I feel like it's going to be in either India or China. Like, like it's going to be like Delhi or Shanghai, maybe. Trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean Mumbai or Beijing, I think, are actually smaller than Delhi or Shanghai. I will lock in Delhi.
What do you got for us? Delhi.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Elliot. Delhi is number 2. So it's a good guess, but not correct.
I'm okay with that. Can I get half points?
No, you can't. Unfortunately. The Aurum Assembly has got it correct. It is Tokyo. Well played, everybody.
Really?
It is.
Is Tokyo just like massive, as in like geographically speaking? Like is it very wide and long? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but that's in its favor, right? Tokyo, we got about 37 million. Million. Yeah, I was about to say billion. Hold on. No, that's not right.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, Tokyo has 37 million.
Yeah. Delhi's at 30.
I would have assumed
30.
So if you'd asked me 5 minutes ago, I would have assumed the population of Japan was about 30. So I'm clearly way off.
Yeah, population of Japan, Elliot, from my consulting with the spirits, is about 120 mil.
Fuck.
So about
Japan's
a
a lot
quarter
bigger than I
is in
thought.
Tokyo.
In
It's
terms of
dense.
people.
It's a dense place.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got the Aurum Assembly in the lead at the moment, but here's your chance to make it up, Elliot, because I know this is a topic that's near and dear to your heart. The next element of the portfolio is innovation. How much are we going to gamble on innovation?
I need to catch up, so I'm going 3 again.
Yeah, going 3. All right. Oh, this is the most conflicted I've seen the Aurum Assembly being, but I think it looks like it's a 3 from them as well. So 3's along the way.
You'll need to get cowardly. Just start doing 1s. Let me catch up.
All right. So, Elliot, this question is, in the realm of innovation, how do you judge innovation? Well, the obvious answer is you ask your contestants to innovate. Tell me your coolest original idea, Elliot. And Aurum Assembly, I'll just take one that I see in chat that I feel is a kind of average representation. Whichever idea is the coolest and the most original, well, you know, it has to be original, but it has to be the coolest is the judgment criteria, wins. What's your coolest original idea?
There's no topic constraints or anything?
No topic constraints at all. It just has to be an original thought / innovation that you've come up with.
Okay, cool. Let me think. This is going to be a lot of silence to cut out editing this one.
Come on, Elliot. Have you never had an original idea? While we wait, why don't I tell you one of my original ideas that I would probably submit if I was in the Aurum contest? Okay, now check this out. I think I've told you this idea before, Elliot. I still haven't had the guts to try it. You know, innovation requires boldness and dedication. I think if you took a packet of mee goreng and took it into you in the shower, you could start eating mee goreng and it would be like which is like 2-minute noodles, 2-minute noodle type of thing. And it'd be like a crunchy noodle snack by the start of the shower. And then by the end of the hot shower, you'd have like a kind of more thoroughly cooked through the heat and the steam and the water, you know, bit of noodles that you're eating. So it'd be like effectively like a full meal.
Yeah.
That is perfectly designed to be eaten in the shower. So that's my cool original idea.
My only concern with that would be I'm not eating mee goreng without the chili powder stuff.
Yeah, but you're in the shower, Elliot. I mean, okay, you got to be a bit careful about where the chili powder gets. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to think about ideas that I've had.
Yeah.
But none of them are good.
This
is my problem. I have lots of ideas, but they're all bad.
You got to give us one, Elliot. If you can't come up with an idea, you're not effectively innovative enough. I'm starting to get some in chat, but I'm not going to read them out yet. But I am noting them.
It's just so broad. I'm gonna have to impose constraints on myself, I think.
I like this comment from I'm easily impressed. I just keep thinking Uber for cats, but what does that mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, that honestly, the only thing I can think of, and I'm just going to have to lock it in because this is already taking too long, was the old app I tried to convince you to make once, which was Mayfly.
Yes. Well, why don't you describe it, Elliot?
Yeah. So Mayfly was my idea for a chat app where you can only chat to one person. That person is randomly assigned to you, and it changes every 24 hours.
Yeah. So you have one day to talk to somebody, and if you like them, you know, you can set up some alternate method to continue talking to them, but you just have one day to talk to them. It's effectively kind of a dating app version of speed dating, right?
Yeah, I get. I mean, it was originally brought up in the context of we were trying to decide what the worst app to build was, and I pitched it, and then everybody said it was actually an alright idea.
Yeah, I actually still think it's a pretty good idea.
People are bringing up like Omegle and Chat Roulette in the chat. I have just dipped back into the chat to see what their ideas are.
Oh shit, I accidentally scrolled up and I wasn't seeing any more of the chat. Whoops.
And so they might say it's different though. That's my defense.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of similar, but yeah, it's you know,
I haven't used either of them, but are they 24 hours? Just saying.
Chat Roulette or Omegle. No, you can kind of opt to continue at any point, I think. As far as I know.
No, see, Mayfly, if it's 24 hours, like if you get a dud, you're stuck. Like you got to wait till tomorrow before you can talk to anyone interesting.
Yeah, So you've both. So I'm going to pick what I feel like is a medium level idea. What I'm seeing in chat here, which is my tallest idea: open-faced grilled cheese as a hot dog bun, which I think is a very interesting food innovation.
Sorry, what does that mean?
So like a grilled cheese, kind of melted cheese, like a cheese on toast, but a slice of bread, as far as I'm interpreting it, that you then use as like a bun for like a cheesy hot dog kind of vibe. So it's like, imagine a sausage sizzle, Elliot, but instead of a piece of uncooked Wonder White, it's a grilled cheese, like a single slice of toast with melted cheese on it.
Okay.
Picture
tiger toast, but with a hot dog bun and without the Vegemite.
Yeah, exactly. Tiger toast, but instead of Vegemite, swap it out for a hot dog.
Like it's in the actual sausage meat. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, interesting. Comparing that idea for a grilled cheese hot dog up against the app idea of Mayfly, it's interesting. I do like both of them. Elliot, I'm going to give you a full 3 that you've gambled, which will bring you up to 12.
Yeah.
I do think this idea the food idea is somewhat innovative, but I don't think I'm going to award it any gold coins, but nor am I going to take any away from the gambled amount. I feel like it's right in the middle kind of the innovative vibe. So I'm going to give the points to Elliot, but not take away any from the Aurum Assembly for that one, I think.
What are our scores then?
So, Elliot, you've got 12 gold coins. Aurum Assembly, 15.
Okay. Cool. That's gainable.
All right. Next of the portfolio is factories. So, Elliot, how much would you like to gamble on factories?
2.
Okay, 2. I'm looking at the Aurum Assembly. I think it's 3 again from them. Yeah, there's a few 2s, but it looks like it's a 3. I saw a pie in there as well, so I'm definitely going to go for 3 for the Aurum Assembly. All right, here's your question, Elliot. Which company owns the largest factory in terms of size in the world?
Just the one solo factory.
Yep. It's the biggest factory in the world. It's owned by a company. And I think I'll give an additional clue here. It's a manufacturing plant.
Isn't that what's the difference between a factory and a manufacturing plant?
A car manufacturing plant. How about that?
Okay, car. Okay, that's actually good because I was going to say Boeing. I was going to go for planes.
Well, that Boeing's factory, funnily enough, third on the list, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to say I think of the biggest car brand as Toyota.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how specific that is to Australia. Like, I know every second car down here is a Toyota, but I don't know if that's true in America. I'm trying to think what the most common types of cars are in like China and America and the places with actually lots of cars. Car company. I mean, there's no car companies that generate really big cars.
I think you're thinking of Boeing again.
I'm just gonna have to go with Toyota.
Okay. Chat looks like is leaning between Tesla and Toyota. I'll just go ahead and say they are both incorrect, unfortunately. Toyota is the biggest car manufacturer in the world in terms of numbers, but they don't have the biggest factory. Tesla has one of the biggest factories. I think it's second or fourth, maybe. But the correct answer, as Kay said, put in chat, and also Griswo, it's VW, it's Volkswagen. The Volkswagen Wolfsburg plant is 6.5 million meters squared, which is almost as big as Nauru. Pretty small island nation, but still almost as big as a country. Pretty big. 25 times as big as the... 25 times as big as the Vatican.
Okay. Yeah.
So big. Vatican is, it's small, but still.
I mean, I'm not a car person, but what does Volkswagen need all that space for? That's all I'm
They're the second biggest car manufacturer in the world, I guess.
Really?
Yeah. Toyota is the biggest.
Man, I don't know.
In terms of numbers, obviously, of cars.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, they have physically ginormous cars.
They make just huge cars. Journalist is saying VW makes a lot of semi-trucks as well, which I think I track.
That makes sense to me. Oh, fuck, I even said big cars. Why didn't I
go?
Trucks?
If you only had literal big cars or buses or, yeah. All right. Our next portfolio element, Elliot, is luck. Oh no, fuck! Sorry, I was meant to say. I was meant to say fortune again.
That's fine. We already had the other fortune, so I can.
Sorry, fortune is fortune. Forget what I said.
God, what kind of fortune could it be though?
Mm.
Do we? Sorry, what are the scores?
You're on 10 gold points, so you've broken neutral. The Aurum Assembly is on 12, so they're a bit ahead of you still.
Okay, I'm going to go for 3 then. As long as I'm behind, I'm going to keep dropping 3s. Go broke or go home.
Looks like the Aurum Assembly has gone for 3 as well. And here's the question. I've picked and written down a number between 1 and 10. Elliot, you get a guess. Chat, you have to agree on a guess. Closest guess wins. Chat is remarkably quick to decide on a guess. I'm seeing a lot of unified about 50% of what chat is saying is one specific number. So, wisdom of crowds here, I guess, is pretty good.
So I'm trying to Guillemette you. So you've picked a number.
Listen to my breathing. Maybe that'll give you a hint.
Could you just say all the numbers from 1 to 10 quickly? Give me all the options.
Sure. Your options are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, I'm picking up on some micro expressions around 5.
It's a whole number, yes.
Okay, well, it's definitely not 5. We've ruled 5 out, everyone.
I thought it would be just a good prank.
I'm going to go for 7.
All right, and the Aurum Assembly has gone for 4. Let me tell you, the answer was 9. So well done, Elliot. You've won 3 gold coins. The Aurum Assembly, I'm sorry to tell you, you've gone down.
Oh.
I intentionally didn't pick 4 and 7, by the way, because in my head I thought the numbers that people will guess are 4 and 7. So I'm going to pick one that's not those. Yeah, it was closest. It was closest. Yeah, and Elliot got 7. So well done. Well done, everyone. You fell right into what I predicted.
Yeah.
The classic,
we're the ones getting played.
Classic choices, 4 and 7. All right, so now, Elliot, you're in the lead. Our next portfolio area is...
So I love how I finally get into the lead based on just the blind luck.
It's part of the Aurum. It's part of the Aurum.
None of the skills.
Roads. Roads is the next element of the portfolio.
Roads, but we already had cars.
No, we didn't. We had factories. Sorry. We haven't had cars.
Okay. What are the scores?
So the scores are, Elliot, you're on 13 gold pieces. The Aurum Assembly has 9 gold pieces. The Aurum Assembly wants to start gambling more. I'm just going to keep it between 1 and 13 for now.
All or nothing. I'm going to go for 2 then.
Okay, so the Aurum Assembly is going for 3. You're going for 2, Elliot. Here's the question. Roads. What is the longest road in the world?
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah. It's all about biggest and longest and most and shit like that, right?
This is exactly the kind of bullshit trivia you're so good at.
This was a really interesting one, actually.
Yeah, because I want to say the M1 here in Australia because it does a full lap of the continent. And that's got to be worth something. But then I'm also, there's probably going to be, do we count, is it one single road?
So this is such a contested topic. I thought of this question, and in searching for the answer, there was so much back and forth about stuff.
Yes, because I just want to say I have a friend who rode a motorbike from the tip of South Africa to some place in Russia, and it was the longest single route you could take, without just on land.
Yeah, so
that was multiple roads.
How I'm defining this is one specific, I'll just say highway. It can kind of go, it can kind of be different bits of highway as long as it's one connected thing that you can drive and it's kind of one highway group. You know what I mean? Because the M1 in Sydney, you would have the Carl Expressway and the Princess Highway or whatever, right? Those are technically kind of different bits, but they're on the one highway. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, if the M1 counts, I'm going to lock in the M1 because that's It's either that or it's going to be something in like Russia. I think. I'm just trying to think because like presumably to really count as one of these single roads, it has to be locked to a single country. And there aren't two, like Russia and China are two of the only ones that I think are bigger than Australia, really, to count for something like this.
The Aurum Assembly is following your lead on that one. So the M1, which is part of a national system here in Australia called Highway 1, which I now know because I was looking this up, is second. It's second,
Come
unfortunately.
on.
Yeah, sorry. So Aurum Assembly
isn't that what I did with the population one too?
Exactly. And I think you did it with, you've done it with a few. You did it with the factories as well, I think. So I'll tell you, when you look this up online, you might see the Pan American Highway listed, which goes from Alaska all the way down to the bottom of South America.
Fuck. Okay.
That is not. I've discounted that because while Guinness has that listed as the longest road, there's a 100-kilometer gap there called the Darien Gap in Panama where you can't drive, where you have to stop and your car takes a ferry and then kind of goes around and then.
Oh, that doesn't count.
Exactly. It clearly doesn't count. And I don't know why Guinness thinks that it counts. It clearly doesn't. It's ridiculous. So the Pan American Highway is out. Sorry to basically every source online that seemed to list it without just like being like, oh, but there's a gap in it because so you can't actually drive the whole thing. But yep, it's the longest road. Like, no, fuck off. Anyway, the winner is the Asian Highway 1, which runs from Tokyo to Turkey. And Elliot and some of you folks in chat may be thinking, hold on, how the fuck do you drive from Tokyo to Turkey?
Yes, I was about to bring that up.
Exactly right. I think it's Tokyo. It's somewhere in Japan. So
is there a bridge between Japan and the mainland?
There is not. There is no bridge. This also includes a ferry from Japan to like Korea or something. So I discounted that portion and calculated how long it would still be, and it's still the longest. So
that makes sense because the Japan to the mainland bit wouldn't be much of it. Like Japan's pretty tiny.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a bit contentious because part of it goes through North Korea. Goes through Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey. So it's kind of contentious whether you could actually practically drive it currently.
Well, that wasn't the question.
Exactly. So I counted it. So yeah, the Asian Highway 1 is the winner. Number 4, a few people were guessing things about Russia. There's like the Trans-Siberian Highway, I think, which kind of runs maybe along the Trans-Siberian Railway or something like that. That's like 4th or 5th. So it's pretty up there, but...
Yeah, I guess if you cut straight through Russia, that's not actually that much.
Yeah.
Like the thing about the M1, like the reason I did it is because I know it does a full lap.
It does a full lap around the country, exactly right.
Which is like around the perimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So unfortunately, nobody got that one right. So you've both lost some gold pieces. But rest assured, if you're looking to make your fortune, that's good because the next category is fortune.
Go fuck yourself. But we already did. How many points ahead am I?
You're on 11. The Aurum Assembly is on 16. Sorry, 6. Whoops.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna play it safe then and just put 1 in.
Just put a classic 1. All right.
Yeah.
And we've got the Aurum Assembly is desperately trying to bid more than 3, but I'm just going to take 3 from them. Your question for fortune, we're back to a pretty straightforward trivia question. What currency, we talked about Nauru earlier, what currency do they use in Nauru?
That's why you brought up. It's like, why did he mention Nauru? Okay, so what currency do they use in Nauru?
Nauru is spelled Nauru, for those of you who aren't familiar.
Yes.
It's in Oceania. It's near to us here.
Now, it's
Narubles is a very good answer, Zizard, but, I'll just spoil it. Not correct.
Niue, I think it is. I know how to spell it. Niue. That's the one that has Pikachu on their $1 coin. So I'm surprised you haven't brought that one.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Niue Pikachu $1 coin.
I think they also did a line with Disney princesses because they're not technically part of the international agreement for copyright law. So they just do whatever the fuck they want. They can just do
whatever the fuck they want. That's awesome.
Yeah. Also, the whole country gets free Wi-Fi because it's a tiny island, so they just have Wi-Fi on the island.
An island country in the South Pacific Ocean. It's about 261 square kilometers. So if you're playing along at home, that's maybe like 100 and no, sorry, it's about maybe 40 to 50 times as big as the world's largest factory. So I was just struggling to do math in my head for a second there.
So to just speak aloud my logic for this. So I haven't traveled the Pacific Islands as much as a lot of other people I know, but the thing I have picked up is that a lot of them just take like US and New Zealand dollars. Particularly the New Zealand one, because a lot of them, New Zealand is just their ambassador to the UN. But it's hard to believe Nauru is one of them, because as an Australian, I can't hear the name of that island without thinking about how they like to let us commit all sorts of crimes against humanity on the island.
Yes, immigration detention specifically, right?
Yes. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that it's just the Australian dollar, but I don't actually know where Nauru is geographically. Because a lot of the ones that use like the New Zealand dollar are like closer to New Zealand, and I think Nauru is closer to Indonesia. So can I just say the Indonesian currency?
Sure.
Even though I don't know what that is.
Okay.
I think it's rupees. Do they use rupees in Indonesia?
Well, you're about to find out, Elliot. And chat has locked in the USD. Unfortunately, you're both incorrect. It was Australian dollars, Elliot. You were so close.
Damn it.
Yes, Nauru is one of 3 island nations in the world that use Australian dollars as their currency. The others I had on a thing here, but now I cannot see it. So I think I've lost that tab that I had open. Soz. So you're doing pretty well compared to the Aurum Assembly, Elliot. You're at 10, so you haven't changed at all, but the Aurum Assembly has lost a lot of points. Our next portfolio area is tech.
Yeah, I'll chuck 3 on this one.
All right. We got a 3 from you and a 3 from the Aurum Assembly. So here's your tech question. Elliot, tell me what you think is the most impactful piece of technology on human history, and I will judge which is more impactful.
I fell right into your trap, assuming this wouldn't be a creative question. What do we define as a technology?
Hey, that's up to you. You're the Aurum, potentially.
Because I once watched a documentary on how the invention of the printing press was the most important, single invention that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm. If you can make a case for it, I'll allow everything except one thing. When I was Googling, I was reading through what people thought was the most impactful piece of technology in human history. And I found a spirituality blog post about how it was the human body. And I think that's like the one thing that you can definitively say is not technology. It's not invention, remember. This is not our innovation round. This is our technology round. So there's probably overlap, but I don't know.
So I feel like a technology is something that we build like physically.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to favor old shit for this, because it's kind of like, you can talk about like the smartphone or whatever, but like then I can just be like, well, Alan Turing, made the stuff that made that possible. So, but then I don't want to be boring and just say like something super basic like the wheel. I'm trying to think of a single device that has had the most impact on everything. I always liked, because I just don't want to copy the documentary I saw and say the printing press. I'm going to go for the, I always was super impressed by, like the technology behind, does this count as technology? Like cooking?
Be more specific for me.
Yeah, okay. Because I just wanted to go with like advanced food preparation, but that's probably a whole series of technologies, isn't it? I'm gonna go with like salting and drying food for preparation.
That's interesting. You've gone very specific, whereas the Aurum Assembly has gone for a more kind of collective answer, like for a block of, as opposed to saying the printing press, they're saying something like, printing. You know what I mean? So it's not a specific invention, but a group of technology. So I'll let you do that as well if you want to.
Well, I'll just go for like food preparation and preservation then.
Yeah, interesting. The Aurum Assembly has gone for agriculture, and I think it's a pretty good answer. It's that classic answer about increasing the amount of food that humans are able to produce, leading to like things like cities and ability to develop specialization because farmers can make enough food for multiple people and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah. Well, it was like we both read that book, the Homo sapien book.
It was just called
Sapiens.
Sapiens. Yeah.
Sapiens, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a pretty good answer. Your answer of food preparation is not entirely dissimilar from it, but I think is not quite as correct, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, so agriculture made more of a difference.
I'm going to give the points here to the Aurum Assembly, and I'll take some of your gold coins, Elliot. You gambled 3. I'm going to take 2 of them away from you, but I'm not going to take all 3. That feels harsh to
me. Okay, I'm happy with that.
Our next category in the portfolio is Fortune. Oh, it's back one last time. This is question 9. There's another one after, and I promise it's not Fortune again. But this one is Fortune.
Cool. What are the scores?
You, Elliot, have 8 gold coins. The Aurum Assembly has 6.
Oh, I'll go for 2 then.
All right, you go for 2. The Aurum Assembly is gambling 3 on this one. Classic. They've done it every time.
You'll have a problem.
Elliot and Aurum Assembly, for this question, I'm going to need you to go and get your wallet and tell me how much money's in it. Everyone tell me how much money's in your wallet. Whoever has the most money is going to win. But chat, if I don't believe you, I'm going to discount your answer. So no lying.
Okay. I'll be right back. I got to go get mine. It's not
get your wallet. Room. How much cash is in it? No, you don't need to translate your currency. It's fine. Just tell me the raw number. The raw number. I'll do a bit of a translation in my head if I feel it's appropriate, I guess.
Okay. Now, I'm actually getting kind of lucky on this one because I still have all the cash that people gave me when I was selling stuff for my move 12 months ago.
Oh.
But I haven't used any. Like, I used a chunk of it to get my tattoo. But like, I aside from that, I never use cash. So aside from the few $100s I spent on getting that tattoo in cash, the rest of it. So this could be a lot, or it could be not much. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about cash. We've kind of moved away from cash as a society, but I thought maybe it would be weird to ask how much money's in your bank account.
Okay. No. Wow. I forgot how much that
No, we're just going cold hard cash here, Bo. No non-cash checks allowed.
It still amazes me that people in North America have checks.
Yeah, I know, right?
I've had a check once in my life. It was because my grandparents gave it to me. So I have 125 Australian dollars in this wallet.
Interesting.
I never should have got that tattoo because that was where most of that cash went, I think.
That's a solid amount. And now I'm looking at chat. This is pretty close. Like, we've got some that have more than you, but there are also some that have less than you. And so I'm trying to figure out how
I also have like
85
cents of coins.
Okay, well that obviously helps. You know what? I'm just going to do an average of some of these numbers in chat, I think, and I'm not going to bother translating them into different currencies, even though the AUD probably a bit shit on average numbers. I should have prepped this earlier. I thought it would be an easier one to tell who's going to win. All right. We've got some zeros. We got some zeros in there. I think you're going to have it, Elliot. I have to say. Yeah. All right. What was yours, Elliot?
Well, it was 125 and 85 cents.
Oh, I'm not counting currency exchange rates because I can't be bothered to do that. And I think that might have changed the answer, but whatever. The answer, the averages of the numbers I saw in chat was $112, which means, Elliot, you've just snuck this one.
God.
Wow.
But well surely done. Most of those were US dollars.
Yeah, you know what? All right, I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to give it to the Aurum Assembly, I think, for this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I'll at least... Yeah, okay, yeah. I'll balance the points a little bit because it's an interesting one, but it's not going to be a definitive win for them. Ellie, I'm not going to take both your 2 gold pieces. I'm just going to take one, I think.
Okay.
So we've got a final question here. Question 10.
Sorry, what are the scores going into question 10?
Going into question 10, Elliot, you have 7 gold pieces. Aurum Assembly,
Yep.
9.
Shit, okay.
Question 10, the portfolio is the human churn.
Oh, I have to go 3. I gotta get the win.
I think chat is also going 3. There's a bit of a trying to mix it up vibe. I think they're going to go with 3. Remember, you can lose these 3 just as easily as you can gain them.
I just needed to make sure that if they went for like 1, I wasn't
you'd
boned.
still have a chance. Yeah, exactly. All right, 3s around the board. The human churn, and this one is multiple choice. So if you don't know the answer, you can just guess, and if you guess right, that's probably a pretty good measure of Aurum candidacy too. So I thought for a bit about what does the human churn actually mean, and the question that I've come up with is comparing birth and death rates globally, which is higher and by roughly how much? A, there's about half as many births as deaths. B, they're about equal. C, there's about twice as many births as deaths. And D, there's about 4 times as many births as deaths. So half as many births, equal, twice as many births, 4 times as many births.
It's definitely one of the last two. Because population is going up. I'm just trying to remember, because I think the world's population is around 7 billion. And I think it was like 5 when I was in high school. So I'm trying to... So that's a net positive of 2 billion, but how many people are dying? I don't... I'm going to go for C. I think it's about double. I think if it was 4 times, our population would be sky. Oh, but what about infant mortality? Never forget about infant mortality. I can't decide between C and D. Sorry, it was death rate, just all deaths, right? So infant mortality would be counted in all deaths, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Okay, then I'm going to go for C.
C? I think chat is also going for C, which means regardless of the answer, they've won. But the answer is C. There's about twice as many births as deaths. The numbers are, there's about 1.91 deaths per second and about 4.43 births per second. So a little bit over twice. Although, as a bit of a fun fact, Elliot, these are predicted to converge to be about equal by 2100. So they are kind of coming closer together.
Just like in the peripheral.
Just like in the peripheral, yeah. Also, fun fact, for a long time in my head, I have thought 7 billion is the world population. It's almost 8 billion. It's going to be 8 billion very, very soon. I'm looking at Worldometer world population, and it's 7.999.6 billion right now.
Oh, wow. So it's really close to 8.
Yeah.
Because I remember in early high school...
2 weeks, I would expect.
Yeah, in early high school, we would get told 5 billion in our textbooks. So that's
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost 8 billion right now.
So do I die now because I lost the contest?
No, unfortunately, you don't die. You do get unmade, so it's worse. Unfortunately,
that's fine. You can do the outro then.
Yeah. So I'll just unmake you quickly, Elliot. Hey, Aurum Assembly, congratulations! Not only did you win, you also, and it looked close for a bit there, made gold pieces. You didn't just lose gold pieces, which I was worried you were both going to be terrible candidates and having just lost all your gold pieces. But congratulations, you didn't. So yeah, thanks for listening to what I guess is now my show, everybody. As mentioned before, you can leave your answers to the discussion questions in the discussion thread, which is linked in the show notes down below. Hey, why not also review us on the podcatcher of your choice? You know, the Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or whatever kind of podcast platform you use. It's a great way to trick people into getting into Arbo if they listen to this podcast. You should also check out our Twitter, @PowerReflectCast, where we post memes every single day. And hey, while you're checking out our stuff, why not go to doofmedia.com, where you can find out all the other great information about shows on the Doof Media Network. So check that out. As I mentioned, you can also become a part of the live audience and join the Aurum Assembly, the now successful in their candidacy Aurum Assembly. More information on that is at doofmedia.com/Discord, but that's free to join, so feel free to do that. If you're looking for something that isn't free to join, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia. Becoming a patron means you're directly supporting the show and all the dumb shit we do like this. And you also get some fun perks in exchange. So things like bonus episodes. Elliot and I were about to record an episode of our bonus show. Unfortunately, we'll kind of have to figure out how that's going to work now. It'll just be me and Georgia instead. The High Ground, but that's a fun show. We're talking about the Jurassic Park /World/ the Lost World series right now. So you can get access to that by going to patreon.com/doofmedia and becoming a patron. And remember, while you're at patreon.com, make sure you check out patreon.com/Wildbow. Become a patron of Wildbow and allow him to keep writing stories that we get to make up fun, stupid games around. Because that's fun too. So yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. Sorry that it's just me now. But yeah, I guess it's been good, and see you next time.